Hello and welcome back. This is the fourth episode of Gameable Audio. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and today we are going to talk about the generational superstars. Of course, these are my hand-picked choices. Of course, everybody else can have other opinions about it, and I would love to hear that in the comment sections of this episode. So please, if you like what I'm talking about and the songs that I picked, do you agree? Do you not agree? Do you have other things that you think has been more influential when we are looking at the superstars of the so-called generation of consoles? With that said, I think it's just better for us to kind of dig deeper instead of me going into any further detail of what I'm talking about. So, first one out is going to be a pretty special one because I don't think a lot of people will agree on me initially on this, but I will pull my arguments right after we listen to this song. So, first song out for this week of Gameable Audio is Super Mario Bros. Underground Theme. And there we have it, the Super Mario Bros. Underground Theme. And of course, a lot of people might already be like, what the hell, Chris? This is hardly a song, and so on. But bear with me. First of all, let's go a little bit deeper too when we're talking about different generations. Of course, I'm starting right now in kind of the middle, but for me, as a guy who was born in the 80s, this is kind of where my generation started. This is where I can relate to the most. And I was thinking like, hey, let's start over here with the things that I'm most or more common with by myself. And of course, this might differ from person to person. So looking through the different generations here, we have the first generation of consoles, which would include the Magnavox Odyssey, the Pong console, and the Coleco Telstar. And this was the first generation between 1972 and 1980s. We have the second generation, which was from the 1976 to the 1992, where we had the Fairchild Channel F, the RE2600, and the Mattel Intellivision. And of course, this is kind of where it all started. I am utilizing my own, not my own, but a reference sheet for home video game console generations. And people who are interested in checking more out in what consoles go where in this generational setting, I will post a link inside of the episode as well. So in case you are interested to look even further into what I'm talking about, etc., and you want more information, then definitely head over to that one to get more specifications. So, where are we starting with this? So, we're starting with Super Mario Bros. Underground Theme, and this is from the third generation, the generation that covers the years from 1983 to 2003. We have consoles such as the Nintendo Entertainment System, the 8-bit console, the Sega Master System, and the Atari 7800. And looking specifically for the Super Mario Bros. Soundtrack here, especially it's the whole soundtrack. I'm not going to specify any song because the one and only legend and the Japanese behemoth Koji Kondo is, of course, behind this soundtrack. The game itself was developed by Nintendo and was originally released for the NES back in 1985. But the game was also released on arcade, Super Nintendo through the Super Mario All-Stars cart, for Game Boy Advance, but also for Wii, 3DS, Wii U, and the Nintendo Switch. And mostly in the last named here were mostly through the digital stores. So when I'm looking at or listening to the Super Mario Brothers and thinking about what it kind of influenced and so on, of course, a lot of people would deem like the first 1-1 song from the Super Mario Brothers would be the more iconic one, but do bear in mind, this is also a song that has been going on for like forever. It's like in every, just like Zelda games, there's this one tune that's in every kind of game, or a majority of them at least. It feels like we really know that one, but it's all due to the fact that we kind of have this continuously coming in each game. We always have the reference to them, of course. So I would kind of deem and argue that, hey, this is not influential. This is just something we are learning over time anyway. That's why we can relate to it so much better. But when we're trying to think about this 1-1 song, boom, dun 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 dun, then it's usually like not everybody can. We all kind of know it, but one of the things that I'm always thinking about when thinking about, hey, can you name like an early Super Mario Brothers song? And I always tend to go to the underground theme. And my argument here is because, first of all, it's not that much of a melody to it. It is an easy and very minimalistic kind of theme. But it's really kind of dark, and you know, like, hey, this is going to be hard. Even though, well, the second isn't that hard. But when you were young, when you played it for the first time, this was dark. This was Dark Souls, I would say. I died so many times in the first underground level. I would deem it like shameless today. But of course, I was young. I didn't know that much about games. So this is the reason why I would argue, like, if we're looking for influential themes that kind of did something, that I think sparked more life into either a franchise or more music to come, I would deem that the underground theme for the Super Mario Brothers is so much more influential than the 1-1, due to the fact that it kind of continued throughout the series. So I don't know if you guys agree on this, but I would love to hear more about it, because this is kind of how I feel about it, and that's why I think it is such a inspirational superstar to this generation. And when we're looking and talking about the music from Super Nintendo, we're still going to continue to talk a little bit about Konji as well. He's a man of much talent, and with so many years inside of this business, he surely have developed like a very specific style. Also being the main composer for a series such as the Super Mario Brothers series, or Super Mario series, Zelda, and also Star Fox. I mean, looking at his first like soundtrack that he was initially uncredited for was for the soundtrack for the arcade title of Punch-Out! And the reason for why so many people were, and specifically Japanese developers here, tended to be uncredited, or they would use another type of name inside the credits. And this was because that companies didn't want to lose their beloved developers that worked on this, because a lot of other technical IT developed or software, hardware, we're kind of on the lookout for other developers to kind of convey, especially the good ones that really succeeded in this. So there was a lot of headhunting, from what I understood, going on in Japan. So a lot of people within the game companies, they actually never utilized any credits because they didn't want to lose their employees. So when it comes to the Mario Bros. Game here, so the first game was for the NES, and the first game with the music for the front world as well, or in the upper world, because as in the arcade version, which was released in the 1983, only utilized sound effects within the game, so there wasn't that much of else. So the first Nintendo Entertainment System game was actually the first title with audio inside of it, music. But nonetheless, Koji's work with the Mario series has spawned over 74 titles with music, and of course we are able to hear a lot of repetitive work, but of course we are listening to a lot of new ones as well. Looking for the Zelda series, which was initially released back in 1986, spawned over 40 titles with music. And lastly, we have the Star Fox or the Star Wing series that started back in 1993, which also spawned 5 titles with music. And considering the latest title for Kanji was the Escatos, which was released for the Nintendo Switch. However, he was only working with sound remastering for this title, so I'm a little bit unsure when it comes to composition of this, because usually when it comes to sound remastering, it is usually they tend to take somebody else's work. This could be the work of Koji himself, or it could be by another one. And looking for the latest music that he did work on was for Super Mario Odyssey, which was released back in 2017 for the Nintendo Switch. So there's a lot of things going on. We have been talking about Konji from time to time, but since this is kind of now the rebranded of everything, I'm still gonna do like a rinse repeat for everybody. So if we have talked about Koji even in Final Game Music, we're still gonna repeat it again now with the new rebranded name, so we kind of have a clean slate. And when we're talking about Nintendo, of course we cannot forget the other side of the coin, because early in this Generation 3, we actually had some sort of console war going on. And, well, some people might still argue that there's still some console war going on. Of course, when it comes to the real extremist of gaming, it's going to go on for all eternity, I think. But I think it was kind of more prominent, especially between the companies as well. Mostly because we were able to hear commercials stating facts and kind of giving a large wink or a hint to the other company. And of course, I am talking about Sega. And one of the most influential tracks, in my opinion, is to one of their main mascots for the console as well. I know Alex the Kid was one of the first mascots they utilized for Sega, but of course I am talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. So we're going to listen to one of my favorite tracks from the game, and of course it is the first one. It is Green Hill Zone from the first Sonic the Hedgehog game for Master System. And that was the Game Gear and Master System version of Green Hill Zone, and this is Act 1 of Green Hill Zone, and of course this was from Sonic the Hedgehog, the first game in the series. And to me, I'm a real sucker when it comes to the Green Hill Zone. Of course, it is the first theme as well. There's still a lot of other themes that I really do adore and love from the Sonic franchise. But when it comes to the first game, I think when it comes to the game itself, how hard, how easy it was for depending on how you are as a person. For me, I never really liked the games of Sonic. I think they're really hard and there's a lot of trial and error. And I'm really bad at trying to replay or repeat levels over and over again. Especially in a much longer kind of sequence as I play. I find it really hard over time. There's like a very limited amount of games that I really adore doing this, and one of these games would be Mega Man X, for example. That's kind of, but there's not a lot of other games that I would do that for. So I'm very special in that kind of sense, I would say. So I'm maybe not the best kind of person to go through and talk about these things, but I think it's still a very interesting subject to talk about, and that's why I think this was a great theme for it. But anyway, so considering kind of the Regeneration 3, we had 2 tracks actually from this, and this was mainly because we kind of had this feud going on between Nintendo and Sega. Sega actually went and did this commercial, like Sega does what Nintendo don't, and so on. And this is something that I lived when I was in school. There was a lot of kids just talking either, oh, did you have a Nintendo or did you have a Sega? And of course, most of the people had a Nintendo when I grew up, and there are still some people that had the Sega. Of course, me as a gamer and a young child who just loved playing games, I didn't really care that much about this console war that was going on. It was just stupid, in my opinion. It's like we are both playing games that we all love and adore. And of course, in my opinion, it was more a majority of games that were better for a Nintendo game console, but there's still some really good titles on the Sega as well. And some of these I adore because I played them when I was younger, but they were really crappy games in the end. So it's a very special time for me just talking about these kind of things. But anyway, this was kind of why I kind of wanted to have like 2 generational consoles as well, because we had this feud going on. So we had a lot of influential things happening due to the fact of audio chips, etc. And that's kind of what I loved about it. So, considering that we're going to talk a little bit more about the composer here, it is none other than the beast on Japanese person Yuzo Koshiro. And the game here was developed by the Japanese company and studio Ancient Co. And the game, it was released back in 1991 for the Sega Master System and Game Gear. The game was also later released for the Palm OS, which is a mobile kind of garnet device where you were able to play it. And then also for the Wii and 3DS. And the last 2 here was released through digital download throughout their digital stores on the consoles. We talked a lot about Yuzo Koshiro in the past, but of course, as I said before, we're going a little bit back to the basics here. So, considering this beast and also a behemoth, just like Koji Kondo, Yuzo is another famous composer who has a large influence, especially on the early development of games. I would say, considering these 2, I would say Yuzo is the person with more tools in his box. Maybe not as many games inside of his like credit list of games that he worked on. But I would say that Yuzo Koshiro has worked with a larger, wider variety when it comes to video game music. And the first game that he did work on was the game Xanadu Scenario 2, which was released back in 1986. And he has since then created a lot of video game music, but he also have worked within production and also programming due to the fact that he worked at this studio, Ancient Co. And the Ancient Co studio, he did start that one together with other members of his family. So early on with Ancient and Yuzo, they mainly worked with Sega titles and being their customer. Working with games such as the Streets of Rage 2, ActRaiser 2, but also have worked in the end on the Etrian Odyssey series. And looking into Yuzo Koshiro and specifically for soundtracks, the latest work he has done for video game music is for the game Sol Cresta, which was released back in 2022, that had releases on PC, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. This is some sort of a shoot-'em-up game that kind of looks very interesting, as they have this modular plane that you need to modulate in different versions in order to utilize and kind of convey like a strategy, because you do change your weaponry and so on as you rotate and rebuild your ship on the fly in this game. So you had like, it looks like you have 3 parts that you put out. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't. This was the first time I saw it, and I was like flabbergasted. It was like interesting to me. I know I'm really bad at these type of games. I usually tend to like work up and then but I really did enjoy that video and gameplay trailer, and I highly recommend everybody else to check it out to see if it could be something for you as well. I don't know. And yeah, when it comes to me growing up, I actually did have a Nintendo Entertainment System in my house, but I did not play a lot of games on it. First of all, the 2 games that we did have for it was the Super Mario Brothers and also the Ghouls and Ghosts. These are both, in my opinion, very hard games. Well, I wouldn't say any of the games on a Nintendo 8-bit was easy games, because they usually tend to have more of an arcade feeling to it, taken to the home ground of everybody. So they tended to be really hard, and I kind of lost interest quite fast in this, if I'm gonna be honest. For me, when my love for video games and so on kind of started was due to the fact that I have an older half-brother who is 8 years older than I am. He kind of introduced me to the PC and understanding IT and so on. But right before that kind of happened, before me and my family had a PC at home, we actually had the Super Nintendo, and this was the console that really got me into, and I actually started spending more time by a TV than before, because on the NES it was so hard. I didn't have that much fun with it, so I kind of like, fuck this, I want to go outside instead and hang out with my friends. And I don't remember even having two controls, so we were only playing one person, and of course only Super Mario Bros. Had a two-player mode. So yeah, and sometimes I went to go and rent some games. I don't remember how many games we kind of rented. I have some memories of playing different kind of Kid Icarus and so on, but these are the games I think most likely were games my friends had, not that I rented. But one game I did remember that I rented was the MC Kids, the McDonald's game, and yeah, it was a horrible game. It wasn't that much fun. It was hard to understand because it's a Nintendo Entertainment System. You usually read most of the things in the manuals in order to kind of get past if there were any kind of puzzling going on. And of course, young, don't understand that much English, growing up in Sweden. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. So for me, as I moved kind of away from Nintendo Entertainment System, started playing Super Nintendo, having a great time there. Didn't really still read that much, but going into PC later was the bliss. I'm still considering myself some sort of PC master race, but I'm still having a great time playing the other consoles and so on, especially for the Super Nintendo. But I kind of want to bring the next generation in, and I've selected, of course, PC is older than Generation 4, but the song that I've decided to go with comes from this generation. That's why I think it is a suitable kind of generational shift here, going from Generation 3 to Generation 4. So we're going to listen to Full Tilt Pinball Space Cadet main theme. And there we have it, the main theme from the game Full Tilt Pinball, and this was specifically for the playfield of Space Cadet. So it kind of sounds a little bit funny when I said Full Tilt Pinball Space Cadet, but that's kind of the full name of it because it's so specific for it. And with this song, we kind of headed into the Generation 4 of the console, home console kind of thing, together with the PC. And of course, I need to have PC within this because I am a PC gamer mainly. So in Generation 4, we're in the kind of time scale of 1987 to 2004. And now we're talking about consoles with NEC TurboGrafx 16, SNK, Neo Geo, the Super Nintendo, but also, of course, kind of the generation of PC consoles that kind of flies around, flailing their arms wildly. And for me, when it comes to this, I just really adore it. So that's why I think it's especially fun for me to talk about this. Considering the music here, music is composed by and I assume American, because it was really hard trying to find some information about this person, but the name is Matt Ridgway. The game here was developed by the American studio Cinematronic and was released back in 1996. And the game was released on PC and Macintosh. And in this game, we have 3 playable playfields. The first one is more of a pirate theme called Skullduggery. We have the other one, which is more fantasy-like, which is Dragon's Keep. And last, we have the sci-fi version, and it's called the Space Cadet. And talking about the Space Cadet, where we listen to this main theme from, it is not always and only known for being in this pinball bundle game, as most of us might know this game more like the 3D Pinball Space Cadet, as it was packaged as just that playfield bundle for the Windows 95 NT, Windows NT 4.0, Windows 2000, Windows ME, and lastly Windows XP. So it kind of has been a playable game. Not for free, I would say, but it kind of came bundled with Windows. So maybe it was for free, because theoretically you're buying Windows. But anyway, for a lot of people, we've either played like that Minefield game, we played some Solitaire or some other type of card game. But I think most of us really loved and adored the Space Cadet game. I know I definitely did. I played this to bits, I would say. I really adored it, and having the graphics in this game, having the ball flying around. I know, looking at it today, I was like, yeah, it's just sprites flying around and having some sort of emulated physics to it, but it still has charm, I must say. I played an online version of it just for... I would deem it as research, even though it's just for my own sake, because I really kind of miss Space Cadet. I'm a real sucker for pinball machines as well. Not fully on digital ones. I love physical ones way more than I love the old ones. But Space Cadet has a really special place in my heart, I would say. And that's why I really adore this one. So considering like a generational superstar, I was trying to like, hey, I am a PC gamer, but what type of PC game would be deemed as a generational superstar? Because we don't really go through generations with a PC. We're going through more of a generation of parts, I would say, because we usually tend to switch out the parts. We don't buy a new PC that often, unless of course you are somebody who does not want to go in with your hands and work with the parts themselves, fixing and doing things. But for me, I've together with my brother, I've always gone through the computer, switching the parts that I do want to switch out, switching the CPU, switching the GPU, switching RAM, and so on. I find it very soothing. It's fun. It's a great way for me to feel like I can really accomplish a lot of things, even though changing RAMs doesn't really take that much. But of course, a majority of people might be afraid they break something, or of course breaking like a warranty or something like that. But for me, I go hands in. I don't buy fully like put together PCs. I buy all the parts myself and I put them together, and I'm having a blast, even if it takes a couple of hours sometimes. But it's a zen, I would say. But anyway, so when it comes to Space Cadet, I wouldn't say per se that it is really hard to be a superstar of generation here, but this is something that kind of came packed with something for PC, so a lot of players have gone through playing this game. We might not look and listen to this track and say, okay, this was a very inspirational track. It is something that kept me inspired or created something else for the future. I think a lot of people have already kind of forgotten about the Space Cadet. But considering what it kind of meant at that point in time, I think it had some value there, and that's why I deem Space Cadet to be some sort of generational superstar for PC. And I hope you really enjoyed that track. I know I did. It's really nice with the bleeps and bloops, and I just love it. Considering Matt, the composer here, Matt Ridgway, he does have a small list of games that he composed music to, starting out with a Tritrist back in 1995. It's like a puzzling game where you put, like, it looks like small 3x1 sticks with symbols on. Didn't really fully understand everything, but kind of what the pictures looked like. I didn't look at some sort of gameplay. And then we had the Full Tilt Pinball and also the sequel Full Tilt 2 Pinball in 1996, so the year after. And the year after that, we lastly had the Marble Drop, which I didn't look at all. So I have no clue about that one. That happens sometimes. Yes, it does. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We've gone through Generation 3, where it kind of started, especially for me. We kind of continue where it kind of went. Now we're going to explore a track that I know of myself. I've played this game a little bit. Not a fan, I must say, but that is my own opinion. I'm not a fan because of the camera, I would say. But more of that we will talk a little bit, maybe. We'll see. But here we go with Crash Bandicoot 1 for the PlayStation 1. And this is the main theme. Crash Bandicoot 1 and the main theme of the game. And I know a lot of people kind of vibe to this one. I know a lot of people do love this one. So yeah, I think this is a great kind of tune talking about generational superstars. When it comes to Crash Bandicoot and the PlayStation, it feels like Crash Bandicoot is one of those like main mascots for the console people do think about. I've heard about this so many times. People talking about loving the Crash Bandicoot series. I myself find it harder. But it is me. I'm not a good gamer when it comes to platforming in 3D. I can just have it that said. It really rubs me the wrong way. It usually tends to does. There are some games that I really do adore, but they are very limited in what they are and which games they are. But Crash Bandicoot 1, it has a lot of charm to it. The music, nonetheless, I mean, the music is really nice, I must say. And I really adore it myself as well. I've heard a lot of different remixes of these as well. And they come with a lot of heart, I would say, in the end. They're playful as well, which makes it even better. So, considering from the Generation 5 that spans over the course of time of 1993 to 2006, so it kind of overlays kind of a lot together with Generation 4 here. But when we're talking about the Generation 5, we're talking about, of course, the PlayStation, but we're talking about the Sega Saturn, but also the Nintendo 64. So that's kind of where we're at, considering consoles as well, kind of when they released and kind of when they discontinued. Not discontinued fully, but kind of started to take off when the other generation kind of take. Anyway, not gonna sit here and talk mumbo jumbo all the time. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about the composers and the game. So the composition for this soundtrack was made by the American studio Mutato Musica, or today just known as Mutato. And there were two American composers for this one, Mark Mothersbaugh and Josh Mansell. Sorry, Mark, if you're listening. It was not my intention of butchering that name. Considering the game, it was developed by the American studio Naughty Dog and was released on the 9th September 1997 on the PlayStation 1. The game was later reported or re-released on the PSP and PS3 in 2007. This was, of course, the digital downloads from the stores. The game was also released on Android back in 2011, and lastly on the PS Vita back in 2012. It feels like it was yesterday with the PS Vita, but apparently it's 10 years. It's more than 10 years, people. Time sure flies. That's all I'll say. The game was also included into the Insane trilogy, which released not so long ago. Oh wait, it's longer ago. It was released for the Switch, the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC back in 2017 and 18. It's 5 years ago, people. It's 5 years. Yeah, time sure flies. So, considering like each and every composer here, so Mark is another guy we've been talking a little bit here and there about, and this is a man with a lot of strings on his guitar, I would say, because first and foremost, he is a musician, best known from his work and part in the band of Devo. He have all over his years as a composer worked on game series such as Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and also the Sim series, and there's a lot of credits for the Sims, especially the second one. Well, mainly the second one, I would say. But considering the first of his works in the video game music were for the game Sewer Shark, which was released for the Mega CD back in 1992, and in this game it did only compose this tunnel music. Don't know exactly how it sounds or how long it is as a track. But that's the first track that he did. And the last game that he did work on was for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, that was released back in 2021. Considering Mark's counterpart and friend Josh, he have not worked as much, as it seems that he works mainly with commercial and film at the audio studio, because they are covering like a lot of things. It's not just video game music for Mutato, but the games that they have worked on started back with the first Crash Bandicoot game. So what we listened to was the first soundtrack that he did. He also co-worked on soundtracks for the gun-blazing car game Interstate 82, which is a game I really adored when I was younger. I didn't play it that much, but I really have a lot of fond memories just putting on really cool cars, some weapons, and then you just drive around in like Sahara Desert and shoot at each other. It was very like sandy vibes to it, but I really adored to have fond memories at least. And that one was released 1999. And then we have the Jak and Daxter series, but also last reworked and remastered their own work for both the Crash Bandicoot and Insane trilogy, but also Crash Team Racing. So yeah, those are the Mutato people. And what we were going to talk about, the Crash Bandicoot. And of course, I mean, we kind of have left, I would say, some sort of console war here as PlayStation kind of steps in. We're having a larger console war now, but considering what we were talking about in school, at least in my school, might have been different for you guys. But considering in my school, we didn't talk that much anymore about, oh, you have a Sega, oh, you have a Nintendo. Now everybody was just fond and fine with whatever people had, as long as we could just game with each other. But considering the different consoles as well, it was usually, we were more tending to go to people that had either the Super Nintendo, the N64, or people that had the PlayStation. But theoretically, when it comes to PlayStation, we were more backseating and enjoying what the hell somebody else was playing rather than playing something together. While on the N64 and Nintendo, we had, I had very early the multi-tap, so we played a lot of Super Bomberman, for example, and on N64 played a lot of GoldenEye. So those are a lot of different things and memories that I remember from Generation 4 and 5, especially kind of coming together as a group, having a good time. It was very social and, of course, very competitive sometimes, but we, in the end, had a really good time. And working from there, we're going more into an era, I would say, where we're going to become a little bit more isolated game-wise, because we're coming in with more content and larger games as well. There's a lot of things going on. We're going to see more into the CD era here as well, kind of leaving all the cartridges behind as we head into Generation 6. So as a superstar for Generation 6, I don't think I can go with something else more than Halo Combat Evolved and the game's opening suit. Now we're coming in, we're getting more orchestra, we're in Generation 6. It feels so weird to say we're in Generation 6, but yeah, the time estimation we have around here is 1998 to all until 2013, and this was Halo Combat Evolved, and this is the opening suit of the game, and I think a lot of people remember this and really vibe to this one, even though, well, the early thing that goes on in this is a very relaxed, kind of epic start of it. But I don't know why it kind of is. Halo is a sci-fi shooter, FPS shooter game. And for some reason, if the beginning of it with the chorus going in, or the choir, I would say, not the chorus, going into the simplistic or minimalistic vibe of the audio is more of an ambience almost. But I don't know. This song, or the opening suit of this song, in the beginning, I would say like the first half of the song feels so fantasy-wise when I'm just listening to the music. But of course, when you're listening to this one and hearing it and you know it's from Halo, you still see that first opening screen where you can just see the ring and all the different green landscape on it. And I don't know why, but I really adore this one. There were so many times I could just put on my PC, put on the speakers, and just let this track go. Because just looking at this vista of the Halo ring, it's so freaking nice. It is really serene, I would say, to some extent. Yeah, considering the Generation 6, we have Sega Dreamcast, we have PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and Xbox. So we're right now in like the landscape of CDs at the moment, except GameCube. I have no idea how drunk you were when you got those small discs. Very unique, of course, but there's something always with Nintendo. They're always gonna go with some really weird niche kind of vibe to it. Of course, I love them for it, for sticking out so long, for cartridges and so on, because I don't know what it is with cartridges or something, but I really adore them. They're just super cute. I love them. So yeah, of course, I'd rather take a cartridge any time of day, but that's just old me, young me speaking about it. But at the same time, I would gladly take that over any CD, blue. Yeah, anyway. blue. So, with that said, let's talk a little bit more about the song and who composed this one. So, the audio lead and main work was done by the amazing American composer Martin O'Donnell, with additional work by the American Michael Salvatore. Of course, when it comes to the credits, it says that he was the main audio lead, Martin, and the additional work was for Michael. But I can only say that these were kind of co-developed at all points in times. But of course, considering when you're doing something for a credit, especially nowadays, you usually have very specific roles and so on. There's always one boss and so on. The game, it was created by the American company Bungie and was released initially on the Xbox back in 2001. The game was later also released for the PC and Macintosh back in 2003 and was lastly released on the Xbox 360 in 2007. Considering both of these composers, Martin does have a pretty decent list of games, but mainly have worked on games that have been released by Bungie or worked on by Bungie. And looking at his first audio work here for games was for the game Riven, the sequel to Myst, that was released back in 1997. And after that, we followed up with soundtrack for Myst specifically. And then heading on to some of Bungie's earlier works, such as the game Oni, back in 2001. I love this game on PC back in the day. I even bought it for PlayStation 2 not so long ago, but I don't know if I want to play it. I might just kill the vibe of my old nostalgia for this one. But I'm very happy owning it, though. I'm very happy owning it and being able to play it if I would like to do that. But I remember so much about the Oni game. It's insane. I love that game so much. And then Martin started working on the Halo series, basically. And latest of the work was for the Halo Master Chief Collection. And this was the latest audio work specifically, not the latest work itself. Because the latest work that he has is just a thanks to section for Halo 5 that released shortly after the Master Chief Collection. So that's kind of where we're at with Martin. Looking at Michael's, it is more or less a copy-paste from the work Martin has done, as they have co-worked on most of the same soundtracks, more or less. But there is one title that I was able to find within Michael's credits list, and also that he's worked on uniquely, not having Martin by his side. And that is for the game Disney's Guilty Party, which was released for the Wii back in 2010. I don't own this one, but it sounds like a social deduction type of game from what I've seen. But it seems to be like a murder mystery kind of vibe to it, from what I understand. But of course, Disney murder mystery, maybe it's not the thing per se, but it's something alike, from what I understood reading the text about the game. So yeah. We basically traveled a little bit through different generations. We're in Generation 3. We talked a little bit quickly about 1 and 2, what kind of was included for consoles and PCs there. And then headed over to Generation 3, taking a look at the early console war going on between Nintendo and Sega. Walking over to Generation 4 when I wanted to talk a little bit more about PC games, but also, of course, we're starting to get more consoles within this console war going on. Going over to Generation 5 when we get more consoles into the fray, and here we're talking about a bigger type of console war. Maybe it gets a little bit less because we have more options of different consoles now as well, and all consoles kind of shine in their own kind of way. Ending here in Generation 6, where everything is just CDs everywhere. Everybody can start utilizing a lot of more space, making, especially for the music, because going from like the Generation 3, where we have more or less bips or bloops that can't be much longer than a minute, to have this like full 3-minute opening, epic opening that most of the people won't even hear. That's kind of where we're at today, considering all the music that we have. But it's also very, very amusing to have all these kind of things. We're able to even go to concerts today, listening to our favorite tunes in orchestrated versions. And that even goes for the older games as well. Even if they're blips and bloops and programmed synth and crunch waves and so on, we still are able to be... We're still able to enjoy these kind of things, and I just love it. I haven't been to too many. I've only been to 2 different concerts, one in Malmö and one in Stockholm. But nonetheless, they were really nice and epic to listen to. And I just loved it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the different tracks that I picked for this week. Hopefully, maybe you might be a little bit frustrated with my picks, and I would love to hear more of what you think. Do you agree with me on some of these? Do you don't agree? Do you think other games had a more influential take on the different generation as well? I've talked a little bit on Discord prior to this episode, a little bit what other podcast hosts think about this topic. Of course, I find it very interesting. It's a large topic to kind of cover. It would be so much better if I had like some sort of person to talk a little bit more to, bounce some of these back and forth. But I don't have any co-host, and there's no guest in this episode, so it's just me talking to myself, arguing, trying to see it from an analytic point of view, and I hope I was able to deliver some sort of interest with this episode. So with that said, it's time for me to close up this take. We're going about 50 minutes, and it's one of the longer solo episodes that I've done. I usually tend to have around 30-40 minutes, so it's a little bit longer. Bonuses! Fuck yeah! But anyway, time to close this up. So other episodes of Gameable Audio, you will be able to find those at our homepage, videospelsklubben.se. You can find us on Spotify or in your closest podcast app. If there's any app out there that we do not exist on, please inform me so I can check out how we can get there as well. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find us there. And it's helpful for us in order to spread the word of the podcast and the video game music. So the more people we can get into this, the more of us can create an amazing community, talk about the music and the composers that we all love. But for you who wants to do a little bit extra, we recently also had a giveaway for the OST for Wavetale. So if you're interested in other loot that might be distributed from the guesting composers or artists that we get to the podcast, then you can also support this podcast and for future content and quality upgrades, of course, but also in the end, future composers. You can read more about that on our Patreon page. So please consider to become a Patreon. The smallest tier that you can get is for $1 a month, and it helps a lot, especially me purchasing all the music that I am able to purchase for this. We're here together. We are here to support the composers as best, to the best of our situations, of course. So yeah, and as usual, by the end of each episode, no matter which tier you are on Patreon, I'm always gonna give you a shout out. So some of our current, not some, but all of our current awesome backers that we have today is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström. Congratulations and thank you so much for giving me a Patreon as well, joining in, and also a big welcome and thank you to Mike Björkholm as well. So yeah, big thank you to everybody who's supporting the podcast and the work that I do for it. Links to where you can either buy or support the composers behind the music that we'll listen to today will be found in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. Currently, I'm still trying to figure out a little bit more of timing and everything, together with a lot of even bigger but also smaller composers that I'm planning to get into the podcast. I haven't been able to verify any dates yet for it, so the next theme is going to be like a custom theme again. So we're going with shop themes this time, and here I would like to because I'm a little bit unsure when it comes to shop themes. I know I love them usually, so for people that has a larger variety of type of games that I usually don't play, I would love if you can share those in the comment sections below as well, because I would love to get a larger variety, so I'm not just stuck with the type of games that I usually tend to go to or play. I want to be more in a variety here, so I would love if you guys who are listening to this podcast will come in and support me on this one. So this is a call to the wild, or a call to the horde here. So let's come together, let's make an amazing episode together on the theme of shop themes. And with that said, take care everybody, and see you all guys next time.